Good evening, TNT family. We are back here with Mr. Suman Singh and Mr. Vitsi Ram, and we are trying to address these recommendations by these economists in the newspaper, and their recommendation to our new government in recovering our economy and their suggestions. So, Mr. Ram, welcome back to UNC USA Yellow is the Code program. I deeply appreciate you taking the time to come back and join us, on this program to kind of help educate us. So between yourself, Mr. Suman Singh, and we're expecting a few others that will join us. We want to address these suggestions that's been made to our Prime Minister in the public domain and as to how to revamp our economy and our revenue stream. And I would like to hear from you, what is your recommendation and in which way we should really go, being that you are more senior and experienced in dealing with these issues?
Yeah, well, the first issue, good night to everyone, Sumat and
Yes, good night.
Gary and all your viewers and listeners. The first thing a new government has to do is to do a thorough audit of the state of affairs of the government, and a thorough analysis of the state of affairs of the government or of the country to understand what we are dealing with going forward. So we need accurate data with regards to government deficit or surplus. What are their projected revenues? How are they going to get those revenues? How volatile are those revenue streams? We know the volatility of the revenue stream from the oil and energy sector. That is by its nature very volatile. So it means to say when you're doing your budget, you have to leave room for decline. At the moment, oil oil prices are below 60 US dollars per barrel, depending which crude you look at. But by and large, that is below the budgeted amount. So we need to get that report. That report has to be prepared very quickly. Just, excuse me, very quickly by the new administration and disclosed not only to the government. They should have the strength and courage to disclose it to the nation. Only then we could start moving forward. In the meantime, of course, we still have to make monthly payments for wages and so on, recurrent expenditure, which has to happen. The question of borrowings, and many persons are coming out with some, I would call it, in their view, innovative sources of finance to get things going. That's fine, but we have to be careful whether those structures that they are proposing are practical, and if so, at what interest rate government will be borrowing. So we have to be very careful going forward because I have done investigations on several financial structure proposed and completed by the government, marketed by investment banks, where government has been badly hurt in terms of the ultimate cost of financing and its impact on cash flows. So we have to be very careful going forward how they raise financing. The best way to raise financing now is by way of non non borrowings. They should raise financing first. First course of action. How can they raise financing without borrowings? And there are several ways to do that. Secondly, they can also raise financing by non borrowing by going and collecting what is due to you. What is due to you? Now, what is due to you? There are several legal cases that have been started over the years, and somehow, with the change of government, they just abandon it. But once fraud is involved, there's no statute bar in Trinidad. So those are things they can look at. They can look at tax evasion on a very big way by large institutions and examine those and to see why it is considered fraudulent transactions and to see whether there's a good case to call on these institutions to pay back the money with interest. Compounded interest really adds up over the years. So I think let us hopefully that they can finish their audits very quickly and come to the nation and give us a report. But since the view is that we that the various ministries have already utilized their allocation for the year, It means to say that where are they going to get the additional money to complete the year? That's the next 5 months. Where are they going to get money? We know that the the AG's office, they have already declared that they have used up their allocation and they do not have a penny more to spend. So that has to be fixed very urgently. Very urgently. Government, as part of their funding, they have been borrowing from central bank, which we know according to the IMF and prudential guidelines, you are not supposed to borrow from the central bank except up to a certain limit. And Barbados were doing that for many years, and IMF say come and instructed them to please stop it immediately because that is one form of printing money, one form of printing money. And when you print money and put it in the system, you could expect a massive growth in inflation and so on. So government borrowing from the central bank is not a solution to our problem, but it is just another form of digging a deeper hole for us going forward. So we have to be very careful. We are walking on a fine thin line, and this is where government has to be very mindful of it and try to dig ourselves out of the hole. And over the next year or two, we should be focusing on consolidation and stabilization and consolidation of the government finances and the country's finances. And I think that is where hopefully that government accept that as a prescription and proceed very carefully in terms of data collection strategies, what industries to start, what industries to close. We need to make some hard decisions going forward.
But I am also concerned. I mean, with the amount of unaccountable spending from this previous government. And should we? And I know it will take us some time, but I feel strongly that we need to go after them for unaccounted monies, to be accounted for, and for some of them, in my opinion, to declare their source of income and how their relatives got their source of income within the last 10 years. We need to retrieve some money because they move very blatant and bold face in doing what they had to do. I mean, we have seen the amount of recusals from various ministers, right, due to their family association with government business. And I mean that has to be answered now. At the Sunday article of the Guardian here with Mr. Let's say economist here Anthony Gonzalez, and we have Dr. Roger Hussein. Something caught my attention. Under the People Partnership government between 2010 and 2015, 18.9 billion was spent on interest payments and an annual average of 3.5 billion. Under the PNM, from 2016 to 2023, we have 41.2 billion was spent on an interest payments and an average of 5.6 billion, a 64% increase from the PPG tender. We see all this borrowing took place, but we don't see the return on this borrowing versus the PPG. No, this, you know what I'm saying? So they see the PPG borrow, but we saw a return on the PPG government under Mrs. Kamala Prasad Visesa. We saw development. We saw an increase in revenue stream. We saw jobs created. But compared to the PNM who have borrowed so much, it's totally the opposite. Into a deeper ditch. That I mean, that this is unacceptable to me. And I mean, what is the citizens really paying attention? For?
Well, I
So
think, sorry, go ahead, Soma.
somebody was gonna say something, Mr. Singh?
No, I was just like to concur with what Veda had said just now, and I
Yeah.
brought up those points yesterday.
Yeah, but
Don't
as
repeat.
Fade wasn't here, I'm just kind of bringing it up with
Right.
him to
So
get his
I don't
expertise.
want to repeat myself again, the same thing.
Yeah,
But
so I wanted to get
in
his.
the short term, you may need to borrow funds, really, because if you're planning to open up patrician and so on, that requires capital injection. and is foreign capital injection to boot. Now, given the high debt ratio that we currently have, borrowing on the local market is not as bad, or not, both are bad, but it's not as bad as the foreign. When you have foreign debts to service going forward, and you have limited foreign exchange, and yet you have to borrow on the foreign market to start up things like the refinery and so on. It's a catch-22 position. Which one do you pursue? And you really have to tread very, very carefully and do exactly what you said. We need to do a balance sheet of the economy. Where are we at this point in time with respect to income and expenditure? You do your income statements and you do your cash flow analysis and look at all your debt servicing, especially, as I said, the foreign debt servicing, if there are any balloon payments coming up in what years and so on. These things have to be accounted for and be put in your projections, so you will know often the next 2 years, 3 years down the road what your commitments are going to be, to service these loans. So it's utmost importance that they make sure and try to do these audits for the national economy and have it ready in the shortest possible time. That's goal number one.
Yeah, we need some hard decisions on many things. And for example, do we need additional cars in this country? We saw Cuba 70 some years, they're still running their cars and they're looking new as far as I'm concerned. Unlike the cars that we assembled in the 1970s and early 1980s, they were rusting out in 3 years. Now a car can easily last you in good roads 10 years. So we have to decide now. We must live within our means, and we have to look at who's spending the foreign exchange and see whether those are essential items that they are buying, or could we shift it out now to capital investments that could generate what I would call make products and products that could replace the import substitution. And there's several opportunities that we have that we could accomplish that. But we have to say, okay, take some harsh decision, cut the
Mm.
importation of cars by 50%. Cut the import. We don't need additional trucks and tractors and so on. We do need tractors because over the years we sold out all our surpluses to Ghana and so on,
Yeah,
and we
yeah.
don't have wheel tractors again. If you look at Burkina Faso, the gentleman, he imported 400 tractors to be distributed among the farmers, and they are going guns. They are going guns. So we have to make some very strong decisions, very strong decisions for the simple reason. Without it, we would not survive as a country and as, as a viable country. And I think we do have infrastructure in place. And if we make the right decisions, make the right sacrifices, and the sacrifices has to be made from on top to bottom, the higher income earners, we have to make some sacrifices and put this economy on a strong footing that will take us out of this deep hole that we have found ourselves in, a very deep hole, very, very deep hole.
Yes, Peter, but I think by the time you do that, your 5 years have elapsed. As
Well, no, not really,
because,
Suman, not
because
really.
okay,
Sorry, go ahead. Go
okay.
ahead. Sorry.
Reason why I'm saying so, this is a systemic problem. It's deep rooted. Our financial problems are very deep rooted. Some can be solved, off the top within the 1 year, 2 year period, short term, but most of it are structural in nature and we will not be able to have any sort of meaningful return on your investment within a 5 year period. So it will definitely cross over into the next cycle.
But,
So we will
but
have
let's
limited.
be let's be positive. I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you at all. if we drag our feet for implementation, etc., we're going nowhere. We're going nowhere. Tomorrow, and I did mention this in my articles. Tomorrow, the government and the central bank could instruct all these companies, banks, and financial institutions that are hoarding US dollars to bring it back. Let's look at next week. This can happen. Instruct the banks to bring back all the excess foreign exchange within 3 months. Give them 3 months because they got to liquidate certain assets and so on, right?
Mhm.
Now, what will happen is that those banks now will be converting their US dollars to TT dollars.
Right.
They don't have anything to do with the TT dollars. There'll be surplus TT dollars that they don't know where to put it. And this is
Mhm.
where government could raise short-term short-term notes, and you utilize those money at 3 and 4% and put it to good use. We have to be careful that we don't just waste those funds and put it into recurrent expenditure, although that has to be done as well.
Yeah.
So what happens when they sell the US dollars? All the SMEs and they will breathe a sign of relief that will take them over for 1 year or 2 years with that US dollars to come in. I only mentioned the commercial banks, but we also have the under the PNM government, they raised the limit for insurance companies to invest in foreign assets from 20% of the portfolio to 25%. We can instruct them within 6 months, bring that down to 15%. So
Yes.
I'm yet to calculate the value, and this is where the central bank and the Ministry of Finance should be working feverishly to get those numbers. So if we bring in all that foreign exchange, that will give us some time, but we have to be careful where we spend it. We ought to be careful not to spend it in consumption goods because then it's all wasted and we start all over again for the following year. Now, if we identify certain projects to put people back to work, we know that there's a problem. There's a surplus of labor, surplus of employees. By and large, our civil service is bloated. Is more than we ought to have, more than. And we can make those comparisons with other countries and see what percentage of the labor force is occupied by the government. I know for sure that Tobago, THA, they employ 70% of the employees. In other words, just imagine 70% of the employable persons in Tobago are employed by the THA. And should
Well,
that be so?
I can tell you from that way because I spent most of my life working in Tobago. I was the first economist that worked in Tobago.
I want to welcome
Okay.
Senator David Naked. He took a few minutes to join us. And Senator Naked, as we know, is also an economist. So, Senator Naked, we have Mr. Ved Sriram, which you might be very familiar with. And we have
I
Mr.
am.
Suman
I
Singh
am.
here.
Yeah, hi, Senator. Hi.
How are you doing, Ben?
So, I'm doing well.
Right. So I saw Senator Naki took them on for their handling of the economy recently, and Senator Naki, when you feel comfortable, you can jump into the conversation and lay it on them, basically. you know. So continue, Mr. Sriram.
Yeah, so I'm saying lots of things can be done. I mentioned how to get in some US dollars immediately into the system. And let us be careful how we allocate those US dollars because you don't want to allocate it to any company that we don't see a future in. If you don't see a future, why are we wasting money there? It's better they cut their losses and do something else. So we now have to be very cognizant of where we want to push this to make the changes and restructure this economy. If, for example, somebody wants to buy a plant to um, agro processing plant, and I had mentioned before to process pineapples, that is something we should look at urgently and fund it in such a way. I think Dr. Maraj previously made a point. It can be joint private partnership, and I think it's a wonderful structure to make sure that the investments are put to good use and that the organization, the enterprises are managed properly. Don't leave it all to the public Don't leave it all to private, because government now, this is where they can monetize a lot of their assets. Assets meaning to say we have idle lands all over Trinidad. I heard the last government say we don't have enough land to grow anything. Let me tell you, we just need 15,000 acres to satisfy our requirement for rice. We need 15,000 to satisfy our requirement for sugar. Surely we have that, because we had 150,000 acres dedicated dedicated to sugar when Caroni and so on was in full go, meaning to say they provided 75 acres and the farmers provided 75,000 acres, sorry. So we have the land. So if we can say within 5 years, we want to be self-sufficient in sugar, which can be done in 3 years, believe me, it can be done, and rice within another 5 years. So within 5 years, we do not need to import roughly $1 billion in food, $1 billion in food. Now, Angostura is importing about 60, $70 million in syrup. That can be converted. We can start producing syrup within 1 year. That is sweet molasses to go into the manufacture of alcohol and rum, Angostura. When a few months or maybe a year or so ago, Carib was very effervescent. They say they're going to produce cassava syrup to make their beers. We could have done that. I thought they would have jumped at it. Government would have jumped at it and call in Carib and say, okay, how much syrup you want for the year? Let us work out now how much tons of cassava, how much land is required, what resources are required to produce that, and get going with it. Don't worry about the cost. The cost is going to come down as we become more and more efficient on it, and we mechanize. So there are lots of things we can do within 12 months. Believe me, there are lots of things.
But we have seen the actions of the PNM for the last 10 years, and they have, in particular, this last 10 years, we know what they have done for 62 years, most of the oil independence,
Mhm.
in discriminating and suppressing the farmers, the people that can really contribute. They had the hardest time in getting the simplest things done. And up to now, we have to revise the Ministry of Agriculture and how they handle our farmers. The land tenure issue, filling out any simple application to get a loan is an issue. You can't get proper roads. You can't get. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can't get as a farmer. And then the flooding issue is something has to be dealt with, because you can't be working so hard throughout the year, and then a rainfall come and knock everything out that you work for, and nobody cares about it, and that's costing the country. So I
I,
mean,
I
I
like
feel
I,
that.
I like to interject, and the
Please,
sad part
brother,
about it,
please.
the sad part about it, it was all intentional by the PNM. The PNM were never interested in having a viable agricultural sector. Never. At no point in time can you point to them having an overarching agricultural policy where we bring the farmers together in a comprehensive manner and have a group dedicated to one crop, another group dedicated to another crop, whereby we could really reduce the food imports. The PNM was never interested, and that was to serve many of their finances, as we know.
Correct.
So I
Correct.
think it's a perfect opportunity when it comes to that revenue stream, those new revenue streams you're talking about. I think Ved made a very good point. This is the perfect way to increase our opportunity to get more foreign exchange in the system. It has to come, and it can come from us having a really viable agricultural policy. And I'm sure that
I think
Ved
Telenaki just
mentioned
fro-
that
yeah, go ahead.
syrup, but there are so many other things that if we put our heads together, there are so many other things that the world needs. I mean, our cocoa production must go up. Our fertile land, we have about 90,000 acres. Someone mentioned 115. Yes, we have 115 acres. But when it comes to fertile land that doesn't flood, we have about 90,000 acres. That's a lot. That's a lot. If we dedicate a portion of that to serious cocoa, I mean, we produce the best cocoa in the world. I mean, we can really, really have an impact on that. And there's so many other things, but the government was never interested, and they never will be interested, because it's not a PNM policy to really elevate our poor and working class people through farming, through agriculture. They're not interested at all. But I think we are perfectly placed to do that right now.
And which is something that we have to really run with, because you know how the time flies, and we need to get this, especially where while we're working on the oil refinery and trying to revive those industries, the food production is something that we need to jump on and deal with the flooding issues right away as quick as possible, because I mean we only have a few weeks before the rainy season comes in. And and we want to make sure we can be on the road to protecting those farmers, and also getting some kind of a leverage on getting the food production going. I know there's a lot of plans, but we definitely have to deal with these issues that we can handle, and later on deal with the other infrastructural issues surrounding the farmers. But go ahead, gentlemen.
Yeah, if I may add as well, you see, for the cocoa farmers, and this was discussed before, we have a fairly large workforce with CPEP. Instead of they cutting grass throughout the year, we can take those same workers and circulate them among the different cocoa farms to clean the farms and prune the trees and whatever. That's not, you don't have to go to university and spend 4 years to learn to do that. Just by a um, few times instructions, a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we can train our CPF workers and put them to move from farm to farm, cocoa farm to cocoa farm, and get these things done. And this is where government will share in the produce. When I spoke to the professor at the university, I forgot his name at the moment, he's from Sri Lanka. He was saying that the yield from Ecuador and these countries are 15 times more than what yield we get here. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine? So we have to use science and say how can we increase our yield, and therefore you reduce your cost per production per ton or whatever, and make it a world class by consolidating all these small chocolate manufacturers and all of that, and we could consolidate that and have a very flourishing chocolate cocoa industry that we have added value locally. But let me introduce something else that I believe is workable. It's medium to long term. Out of those 150 acres, um, that is that was on sugarcane, we could allocate about 5,000 acres to trees, high yielding trees, mahogany, teak, and the other trees that I try to cultivate myself. But I'm not a scientific farmer or anything. But things like sandalwood trees, high value. That is $200 per kg. After 15 years, you can harvest. You have to kill the tree, though. That's the only thing. But just imagine if we had about 10,000 acres in mahogany right along the highway, and within as that is growing, we let go sheep and goat and even cattle. So we can have some very flourishing industries, intercropping and inter managing, that will put people back to work and give them a good wage, give them a good wage. People still
And
willing to.
and and
Mhm. Go
and
ahead.
we can kill a few birds with one stone.
Mhm.
To your point, when you spoke about using CPF workers, we also have a lot of registered Venezuelans here as well. And I think it was the economist Roger Hossein from the university who made a good point about using the migrant population in the agricultural system, because we will need workers if we have a concerted effort, and it's all about political will. Should we have a concerted effort to really consolidate our agricultural policy and our agricultural output, we're gonna need workers, and we have a quite a supply with the migrant population that basically we can get them out of that underworld system that a lot of them languish in, that is becoming a bugbear on our economy and our country. We can take them out of that and bring them into the agro processing, and we don't have to look far. We can look at Burkina Faso. In a few, maybe a year and a half, they were able to produce a peanut processing plant, whereby before they were sending peanuts abroad, and so they actually are producing, processing peanuts, making local peanut butter in Burkina Faso. They are no longer just exporting; they are producing the crop, and they're bringing it to the final, the end product, which is where the real money is. And that's what we need to start doing, and then exporting that product. And we need to take our example from that. And it's only when you decide to really do something in the interest of the farmers, in the interest of the country, whereby we grow, we grow what we intend to eat, and we eat what we grow. That's how you get a viable agriculture system. But when you don't have the political will and you maintain a dependence on imports, you're never gonna get out of that cycle. You're never gonna do it as a government. You're not.
But then again, to a large extent, that was politically done to, beef up their finances coffers. It didn't
Yeah, by
happen.
design.
Oh,
Everything there we seen is by design.
Everything you have to
absolutely.
think about, all the imports coming in, all the drugs, meaning pharmaceutical drugs, all the food stuff coming in, all these are monopolized by just a
Absolutely.
handful.
Absolutely. And you have, and I mean, it has been so detrimental to our country because we have really bypassed a sector or a group of people within the society. And I don't want to say it's demographic discrimination or geographic discrimination. I mean, but it's clear what has happened over the years, over the decades by PNM. I mean, it has all been words. It's all, I mean, you cannot tell me what is what's the contribution of agriculture to our GDP? I think it's like 1%. That's just crazy. That is
But
crazy.
that was deliberately done by the PNL. We saw that, and they
Correct.
did it very bold-facedly.
You know, 1%. I mean that, and then you want to tell us that you are interested in agriculture or promoting agriculture. That's impossible. I mean, and you tell that to any economist anywhere in the world, and they will laugh at you. That agriculture contributes 1% of GDP. I mean, that's just crazy. So I think now the UNC will push in a very deliberate, in a very pragmatic manner. I mean, first it has to come with consultations, vast consultations across the board with our farmers, and bring them on and we only have to take Kenya as an example. I mean, if you have economists all over the world who look at what Kenya has done in the last 25, 30 years, where they have an overarching agricultural policy, they will manage to boost their agricultural output by 30%. I mean, we have to look at these places and realize that we can do it as well. I mean, we have everything here at hand to do it. It's just the political will, my brothers. Just the political will.
But this is where I think the University of the West Indies comes in. And we give them a mandate to come up with about 5 to 10 crops, new crops that we consume, but we do not grow here. Come up within 1 year to 18 months of 5 to 10 of these crops that we could propagate throughout the country and give the university that mandate. And if they cannot deliver, cut their funding. What are they doing? What is the university doing? You have
But we
so
have
many
local
doctors.
people also who can do that very
That's
quickly,
right.
you know.
That's right. The answers could reside
Beside the
within the
university,
stakeholders.
we have local people who has been strangled by the Ministry of Agriculture and this government. We have numerous farmers. I mean, we could bring hundreds of people here on this program, and they would tell you their stories of the difficulties they had with getting the simplest things done. I mean, when I come to Trinidad and you enter the St. Helena area there, and you see all the cane land still standing like that used to have cane, and they said they was going to give it out for agriculture. And I mean, after so many years, this grass growing there on the side of the road, nothing productive taking place, and we have people hungry in the country. I have had too many people reach out to me for food under the PNM. Too many people reach out to me all the way in America here for food. And that is, I mean, growing up in Trinidad, one thing I never see my family suffer for is food because my grandfather always planned, my mother and my father always planned. So there was always an abundance of food. I mean, for food was the least thing that we had to worry about,
Yep.
and to see people in Trinidad suffering for food is totally unacceptable to me. And as far as I'm concerned, the situation in the world and our economic situation, we need to jump on a mass production of food and to sort out the issues with the agricultural industry here right now, deal with the flooding straight up, and minimize that. And then we later on we will deal with the infrastructural issue around it. But at least the cleaning and the little irrigation, we need some backhoes out there to kind of stop these people losing their crops. And it's very costly and it's heart wrenching to see that. Then we would figure out I mean, well, I know we have quite a bit of information already, and then we start to lay our plan out with getting those people who can produce for the country, feed the country, and then start to export. We need to do more exportation on that, goods.
But
but
there are so
look
many
at
there are so many channels available when it comes to the funding for infrastructure. I mean, there are a lot of things. I'll just give you an example. I spoke about it today briefly in a video. The European Union has massive incentives for for SIDS, small island developing nation states, who want to invest in infrastructure for agriculture. I mean, they have earmarked close to 208 million euros for anybody who wants that kind of agricultural sustainability. If they have proof that you are serious about building infrastructure or land, they have him, and we could apply and get a chunk of that. We could apply and get. So there are possibilities for funding agricultural infrastructure, as you suggested. But there are funds available that maybe we don't have to go to our own coffers, because the coffers, the Treasury, PNM has drained it. So agriculture was never on their map, in their ecosystem, in their space at all. So I mean, but there are ways that we could go, that we could get funding that will not be a tremendous cost to our country and to the coffers. And I think the agricultural minister will be looking into all of those possibilities, because we can't say we're going to push agriculture without improving the infrastructure at hand. We cannot.
Which has to be done, firsthand, because I mean, you can't have the crop, the farmers losing their crop. I mean, these things we have resources right now that we could deal with some of the issues. But what I was proposing, brother Nakid, is that where like the Caroni River, the Old Push River, we build those water, how to say, holding areas. We have to expand the retention, right? So we have to make, when I say retention, we need some lake size retention in some of the areas, create some floodgates to hold some of that water that will be coming and running off and flooding the people crops and then damage and going out to the sea. And then the rest of the year we have no water. So we have to build where we can, those holding capacities, and to do a little bit of dredging and the basic cleaning and stuff like that, which we see the government didn't do. They didn't even clean, much less to dredge. Then you see once in a while Rohan run out there when you blast him and try to show he doing something. But no real work has been done since since 2015. So hopefully, you on the ground there with them, that you can enforce, what we're saying. And I mean, everybody knows what has to be done is that, we have to get up and going with it,
But it's quite ironic. And quite timely what you said about retention ponds, because we all know when there's the dry season, there's no water in the pipes. When there's rainy season, there's still no water. But those retention ponds, they are dual purpose. I mean, they can serve the agriculture as well as we have a source of a water supply for when there's no water, there's no rain. So
Yeah, we have to
I,
expand. We have to expand those.
yes, we have to expand this exactly. And we are blessed with mountains. We are blessed with mountains, so we don't have to have all these pumps to push that water. We just put those retention ponds in places that the water comes down. And
I was saying that last night, that you start to trap some of that water up in the mountain instead of let it run it down all the way down. You know,
exactly,
you
you trap
you
it
you,
up
you
there.
can contain it up there.
Exactly, and you let what I mean. And we had a minister of public utilities who had no idea how gravity worked. You know, he had no idea how it worked. I mean, it's such a sad thing when you have a government. Forget all the corruption, all that. When you have before, at least PNM had people who were intelligent, and I think that's what happened in this last 10 years. We didn't see any intelligence from
But
anyone
after
within.
Kamal and Errol left the PNM, then all the intelligence went out the window.
Yeah,
Because I mean, those guys with the brain, they said they thought Eric William was the brain, but it's Kamal and Errol and them guys who really kind of let some of these, this work done.
correct, correct. But we have a challenge right now, and I think it's a challenge that the UNC is up for. Kamala Prasad Bisasa has put people in place, and I think quite capable of pushing the sector forward, diversifying. We always talk about diversifying the economy, but that diversity comes at the same time. It allows us to really feed ourselves, and agriculture has so many facets to it if it's explored. I don't know if people continue to edify themselves, and you can see there are so many different ways with, with, with the recycling of even the waste. And I mean, there's so many things that can be done. It just
Animal feed and all these different things you can
yes,
create and a lot of things.
it just needs to be a collective thought process to it, and I think we're gonna see that very very soon from our government.
If I may add, Carney Limited had run a project by mixing bagasse, molasses with bagasse and feeding the animals, I think in one of the farms in the south. And they found it very successful, very robust buffaloes were being grown there. So we are there's so many little things to do that we can become self-sufficient in food. Um, Sugar cane. Now look at this. You can grow grass in an acre and get probably 1 or 2 tons of sugar of grass to feed animals. You grow sugar cane and you cut it up, chip it up, and so on, and you're getting 35 tons on an acre. In India, they're getting 100 tons with special varieties and proper management of growing sugarcane. And we killed the crop. We killed it. We killed it, not realizing that is one of the best converters of sunlight into energy. So there are lots of things we could do. We could experiment as well with the as Brazil did to make ethanol and mix it with the cars. So there are different things that we can do, but we need to experiment. Not everything is going to pay off right away, but you don't know when you will need it. If you have to go green within 10 years or so, at least we would have experimented and have the technology available and people are understanding what is to be done. So there are so many things that we need to put our intellectual and university people in exciting projects that they could start to invent things and have it ready. Since 40 years ago, University of the West Indies said they're manufacturing a pigeon pea sheller. I haven't seen one in my life. I haven't seen it. Where are all these things?
But I'll give you an example and talk. You talk about simple solutions. I'm sure you all have noticed that when a lot of the green spaces are cut, you see them pack they pack the grass in bags and just leave them on the road. I'm sure you all have seen that.
Yes.
I don't know if you live on the East West corridor, but if you live on the East West corridor, you'll definitely see that. CPEP gathers the waters, put them in bags, and leave them on the road for weeks. Sometimes you come the bus, the grass, just a simple solution. Half a grade. You will have collection because you know what? The PNM, all the ministries work in silos. So what's up the road, and it'll be months before the works come and touch you. You know about that.
Yes.
A simple collection of that grass to feed the livestock. A simple
Mm-hmm.
collection. Instead
Mm-hmm.
of people, a simple collection of grass
Mm-hmm.
in a processing, and you know, and you add what you add, you have feed. You know, all of these things comes with just a minimum of thought, a minimum of goodwill
Mm-hmm.
towards the cause and towards the effort to make us self-subsistent. But now we have to come and do it, and I think it really is a perfect opportunity. And
Mm-hmm.
with that with that said, it's such a pleasure to see you, Red, and see you guys. It's such a pleasure to see you guys. I wish you all the best. I look forward to being with you all again very, very soon. I bid
Thank
you
you,
all
Good
thank you,
night.
brother. And
Yes. Thanks.
send me any video files so I can upload it.
okay, definitely.
All right,
Okay.
so
Brother
send me the
Red,
video files. I'll upload it.
yes,
Okay.
Brother
Thanks,
Red,
man.
take care.
Thanks
Yeah.
for
Take
taking the
care,
time.
Senator. Take care.
Bye.
Have a good one.
And that was our Senator David Nakid. I mean, very intelligent gentleman there who has the right concept of, getting things done in the country. Wait, you still there? You look like you're
Yes.
frozen.
No,
Uh,
no, I'm here. I'm here. I'm
Yeah,
home.
we we have to identify the quick takeaways from this discussion from time to time because we might be talking about the same thing 3 months down the road again.
Okay.
So can I make a suggestion, Gary, that we, some of these concrete ideas which are workable, we can probably start to try to put it into a little format or a little file or a little database so that whenever we can submit it, let's say we have 10 nice ideas, we can submit it to the political leader and let she treat with it in whichever way she wishes.
Yeah. What I
Oh,
will do?
Suman, that is what I'm asking you to do. That from time to time we compile that information. Don't wait too long to submit it to her.
Right.
So that and that is something that Mr. Bate has to give us his email when he gets a chance to, and that's like we could loop him into some of the discussions when we're doing the emails. But he's already on the WhatsApp group there, so let's get those. That is the objective. I don't want to wait too long, especially when something is critical. That we
This
give
is the
her the yeah.
most critical time is try to get monies to run the economy. And you don't want to start to borrow it to pay recurrent expenditure. You have to borrow
No,
to
no.
is to pay capital project that will have a return on your investment in a within the short term, then, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And let's see how it goes from there. There will have to be borrowing. I'm sure there has to be borrowing. But if you can limit that in the initial stages, while we can get more time to plan better and make sure whatever we borrowing is put to the best profitable use we can put it to. So, I mean, I know that she identified these growth poles for the development of the economy. 11 growth poles, 13 growth poles, I think two in Tobago. Um, and we have to try to see how we can start to put things in train to start these things bit by bit by bit. Some are quick fixes, some can be done early on, at least to get some momentum going. And, it all comes back to how we're going to plan and develop Trinidad and Tobago going forward, how and where the funds are going to come from, and how we do utilizing these funds, and how we're going to increase our HR capability to man these projects. And our
One of the things I'm very assured and comfortable is that foreign investors will see the new government here that they will feel a lot more comfortable with under the leadership of Mrs. Bisesa. So that is one collateral far as I am concerned, in that within a few months we will make the country a safer and cleaner place and more interesting and more marketable. And foreign investors will see an engaging prime minister and government, not a bunch of arrogant people who think they're on top of the world. I know for sure. I mean, the appearance of this government is very enticing, and how we prep the country within the next couple of months will make it more enticing.
yes, definitely. You see, once crime and so can get a little handle on the crime, they have to increase the confidence of the investors. If people are not comfortable in coming to invest in your country or your island, and crime rates are high, you don't have this poor infrastructure and so on, it isn't like a negative. They will go somewhere else, Latin America,
I
South
mean,
America.
we live here in the States, right? And we avoid certain neighborhoods to shop, right? Because of our safety and for the cleanliness. And some of us will relocate to certain neighborhoods. Welcome, Dr. Ashford Maraj.
Right.
Jump in whenever you feel that
Yeah.
you have something to say.
Right.
Yeah. So what I'm saying to you is, in the retail business, you had to maintain an enticing environment by providing security, a clean bathroom, a clean store, well maintained store. So these are the things. So you need on the simple common sense basics if you want to gain customers. I mean, prepping the country to entice a foreign investment, make it safe, make it clean, that people come to visit. Investors don't just come there to invest, they will come and visit the country and they come for a vacation. They won't say much to you, and then they will, decide if they want to invest or not. I mean, we are very
We have to be real with this with on the crew there, because what kind of tourists, for example, can you attract in Trinidad at this point in time? Very little, very little. Most of tourists coming into Trinidad now are people who have connections. They are migrants and so on, Trinis living overseas and so on. But to say that you have foreign tourists in the traveling world, it's very, very, very few. You have a few business. There's not a business climate to say that we can attract, potential businesses and so on. That's no longer there. The environment has to change. The business climate has to change. The, you have to make the businesses can ease of entry into the island. You have to set the stage then to that you will someone will want to come and invest in your country. Not to mention things of repatriation of foreign exchange and all these things have to play. So there's legislation and so on has to be implemented to drive these processes.
Well, I think very important is to sort of list out what type of investors, foreign investors, we need. Uh,
Yes,
I could tell you, like a Kentucky Fry, all these things are drain on our foreign exchange.
correct.
Whilst we believe that they are investing, bringing money into the country, and that is not so. All they have to do is to go to the local bank and say we want $10 million to get the my infrastructure and so on in place. So no money is actually coming out. No money is coming out. So we have to determine what kind of foreign investors we need. If, however, they come in and say, okay, they will set up a sugar factory, let government contribute the land, etc. Then we have the markets here, and that is the type of foreign investors we need.
Yeah, joint ownership on
Yeah, yeah,
corporate,
but they
on
need,
a
yeah,
cooperative sort of approach as well. You know that
that's correct.
allows, yeah,
So that so that
partnerships.
so that they bring in money and we start manufacturing things that we could actually export. So we continue to bring in foreign exchange. So that is the type of foreign investment we need. We have to be careful as to somebody coming in and say they're foreign investors and opening Starbucks. And Starbucks, everything is imported.
And
Everything.
those are franchises, really. So everything, it has to be imported because they sell you the franchise on the assumption that you have to buy, the
You
raw
have to buy.
materials,
Yeah.
that goes into it.
Yes.
So
And Pizza Hut, we importing all the dough and everything.
same thing, all the Marios and whatever you
Yeah.
have there, it's
Yeah.
all imported stuff. Every single thing is imported.
That is true. That is true. So I think we just have to be cognizant of that and at least get the data, how much money they're taking out every year, how much money they're taking out, and whether they are drained or not. I mean, as you fall out of bed, you go into a Kentucky in Trinidad. It's so prevalent
Yeah, well, this Trinidad is one of the most lucrative markets.
for them. Yeah,
That's
you're
for
right.
the parent company, which is Prestige Holdings.
Yes,
That's
yes.
the company, it's in USA, Taco Bell, Pepsi, Taco Bell.
Mm-hmm,
They are
mm-hmm.
the owners of the franchise, but
Yes.
you know,
I think they said we are the largest consumption per capita
per
for
capita, yes,
chicken.
yes, absolutely.
But I have another news for you. We're the largest uh, um, uh, purchasers of Porsche per capita in the world.
Porsche mean motor.
Yeah, motor cars, just imagine. And I don't see that as a necessity. And that's what I'm thinking now, that government has to look at the duties for these things.
Make it available, but charge phenomenal taxes on it. So who wanted, pay the price for it?
Exactly. So you stand up. That's one way of trying to address the disparity in
Mhm.
Trinidad in terms of income. Like, whoever has high income, let them pay the taxes on these
That's
things.
right. Yeah, yeah.
So, I,
And
so if I follow what you all are saying, then inflicting pain on people who want to have 5 cars is that's how you go about this.
that
Inflicting
is
pain on people. I think that if I made a point some week, 2 weeks back that when my relative of mine returned from Barrackpore, and I was giving the example of how they have the big houses, well painted and well kept, and paved yard. I don't know if it's oil, sand, or concrete, but it's well paved and well kept yard. And when you try to go into the street, it's because pothole after potholes, you can't even drive your donkey cart, I was saying. They had to park your donkey cart. So the people initiative are way ahead of the government. So if you see, you notice that every time I come to speak, I talk about government are lazy and unproductive, and they're not really, everything bad about them. Few things they might do good. And even, look, the only thing they should be doing in Trinidad is protection, which you cannot do, road and infrastructure, which you cannot do. Those are the main things you have to hold them to. If you cannot do those things, PLM should never be in power. And we don't want to talk about the politics of it.
Mhm.
But the people is ahead of the government. I don't know if you're all aware of this. What happened? Suraj Ratan Rambachan once, when they lost the election in 1981,
Oh,
somehow
yeah.
he was made the county council, the chairman of the St. Patrick, they had St. Patrick County Council in those days.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah.
And and when the NR government took over, they didn't have money. No, so the PNM that time they didn't have money to give nobody. As usual, PNM don't have money. So Suraj and they, however he got, I think they were nominated him, but he was the chairman of the St. Patrick County Council in a self-help program. he decided to usurp the labor, free labor, contributed voluntary labor to fix the roads, and the contractors would supply the vehicles to transport the pitch and the gravel and the boulders
mm,
to fix the roads. And the only thing the government supplied to them was the material. The government took that responsibility. And when you cross the Godino Bridge, it's like you're entering like from Mexico to North America,
mm,
where the roads in North America is so up, way up, compared to Mexico. So when you cross over the Godino Bridge, the road gets smooth and the well marked, and they had
mm,
using a yellow mark. It's straight. It was really strange. That is not part of Trinidad.
mm,
So it was done again by the People's Initiative with the right local leadership. You could get this done. When
mm,
when I decided to write something about the reform, constitutional reform, people need to understand the politics and president. That's crap. President who all out shifting on the head. That's the Titanic shifting around the chairs, and all of them going to drown anyway. Ask yourself one question, and I hope we'll get a chance again to do this with the new government. But you start with what kind of arrangement you want to have with your people as they engage each other. What are the rules of engagement? And if we could find the rules of engagement, then let's work towards that meritocratic system so we can really have productivity. Trinidad used to be the best in the Caribbean, the gem. Sorry, hold on. Let me just tell them to hold on. I'll call them back. 1 second. So the gem, Trinidad used to be great. We saw all our country, when you talk to the Westerners from the other countries, oh, they would like to be that exceptional Trinidad and Tobago. They look up to you. When you meet them in North America, you meet them in England, they look up to the
mm,
Trinidad people. We are a special people. We are not the average West Indian. What made us great is because that Kalapani crossing with many of our people, that they had the initiative to grow and to get ahead and to be better than them. The children must be better than them, and they keep on pushing the children so the children would not have to be whatever they were, the bad things that they would then, which is like hard work and whatever all else again. So this and last time I was telling you, then I was telling you again, when one of you, I don't know if it's Ved or Sumant or somebody mentioned, this is a 5-year government. I told you how it began quaking. Since then I start quaking because I really don't want no 5 years government. I'm thanking for it. But that is not good enough. The people of this country, and we were saying last night, I don't know if Ved was there, but we were saying last night that those two St. Patrick, those two seats down there, should be for the long haul. And if you could do that, you
Point
stand
and
a good
Labrie.
chance.
Point and
Labre,
Labrie. Yeah.
Labre and
Yeah,
Point.
Labrie, yeah, those two seats. I don't see why those people, no matter how whatever thing, I don't see why it is. And let me tell you something. Afro Trinidadian people, the majority of them are decent, very human being, want Trinidad to get ahead. They don't care. Well, that maybe 28% or whatever that PNM that kind, but really generally the mix of people and the
The
Afro
northern
general,
people is a different kind of people to the southern people.
they want to get ahead. Okay, so and if you could pin down those two seats down there, you kind of have your second 5 years and maybe a third. Because I'm looking at looking at a 15-year span. I was just looking at one of my research paper I wrote in 2014, and I had wrote something about frontier capital market, and I was refreshing my memory on the data. And Trinidad you can see the years went by, they went downhill. Like the financial markets, they're illiquid. They don't. There many delisting happening. There is no. You all want to raise capital. The best place to raise capital is the financial market. And here's the last thing I want to say, and
Yeah,
I
but
wanted to
Dr.
say this.
Mark, go ahead. But what are you
No, no,
producing to
hold on,
create
hold on.
the
Let me just
financial
say the last
market?
thing I'm saying. I want to because I don't want to lose my trend. I think it was Joala Rambaran who You all were talking about it just now, talking about the Prestige Holding and the KFC and the FCC and all of that. We know Trinidad and people have the craving for foreign things and local things not good and foreign things better. So, okay, I think it was the chairman of that central bank that came out with us or released. I think that's why they fired him, if I recall what happened there. That he listed a number of one. That back to Yosemite one percenters who were getting X amount of foreign exchange. You're talking about. In fact, Betty was talking just now. He's talking about, but people more foreigners that come and invest in this country, they won't come here and invest unless the risk is low, the risk is too high, and the compensation that we need you cannot pay them because the risk is high. They're looking for 40% return, and they cannot get it, so they wouldn't come because you're first of all your crime is too high. Number one, and a few other things we could talk about. So I think it was Jawala Rambaran who mentioned the those who were getting the foreign exchange and how
Yes,
much.
yes, yes. The big
And Ved, that is up your. I'll give Ved to take over from here because that
Yeah,
you're talking about
he disclosed
you're
it.
bringing it. Yeah, you're bringing foreign exchange. You want people to bring foreign exchange, but the ones you have, you can't manage it. You mentioned it, Ved, that the bank sitting on how many billions of foreign exchange when it could be in the open in the market working for you, working for everybody.
Well,
So
I will make sure that they liquidate the excess foreign exchange. I will make sure. No, I work as an individual in many ways to influence policy decisions on these things. And several of the transactions I investigated up the islands, they stopped doing it. They were Trinidad banks actually bankrupt bellies, and I have proof of it. I wrote about it. They put Dominica, a small little country, they bankrupt Dominica, they bankrupt Antigua with all what I would call illegal transactions, unlawful transactions, and they didn't. The governments didn't know what they were getting involved in. Similarly, here now, when I looked at all the banks, FCB, which is a government bank, they are hoarding over 1.5 billion US dollars over and above, over and above. That is over and above their liabilities, US dollar liabilities. They don't need it. They are hoarding. So I will make an issue. I already spoke to the sent a note to the Prime Minister before the election. I wanted her to raise it on the platform, but they didn't. But she said she will with me on it. So I'll just remind her because there are simple things that can be done could bring US liquidity into the market almost within 3 months. Bring it in the market. But coming
so
back
so
go ahead.
yeah, but no. I want you to tell us whether we can have the updated information on who getting foreign exchange and what are they doing with it, and is it productive or not. For example, if you give PriceSmart X amount of foreign exchange, they're buying goods from Miami. They buy some local goods, but a lot of goods are coming from abroad. So
Hmm.
they're not really there's no multiplier effect because your
There's none.
consumption, no
this is
multiplier.
this
So
It,
you want to get
the
and they will tell you there's no tomato to purchase locally. There's no this. There's no that. There's no you make nothing here. So I had everything has to come from abroad, and the people want it because they line up to go Price Smart early 7 o'clock morning on a Saturday. We want to get the deals or whatever. So there is the foreign exchange being used for consumption purposes, and we talked about that last night. And every time we talk about the same thing, is the foreign exchange used to generate more wealth, or is it used as the end product?
no,
Is it for instant gratification or is it for the postponement of
no,
consumption?
you're correct.
They have, and that is why if you could tell me if they should have that data. We would like to know who getting the foreign exchange and what purpose are they using it for, and then we could talk about asking foreigners to come in and invest. Because if what we have, we're wasting it. Why should more investors come in here and put their money? I mean, we're glad for it. But why would they want to? We wouldn't get any better off if a million investors come in here. We can't use it for an exchange properly. We would never
Correction,
set the things in
Dr.
motion.
Ashford Maraj. There's a
Yeah,
difference here
sorry,
now. There's a
somebody
difference here
speaking.
now. The UNC and Mrs. B
Uh-huh.
says is in government. So your statement is more in the direction of PNM management of the country. So now that
Right.
Mrs. Bisesa and the UNC is in charge, there will be a different outcome
Okay.
and different management structure and performance. So,
Okay.
I mean, your statement is more relating to P&M style of management. Now we have a different sheriff in town here, and it's going to be a different layout of things how it is operated. So this is what we can see.
But
But the
we have
one,
to look at the,
but the
we
one
have to look at
percenters would still they would still be using the foreign exchange, whether
no
no matter
no
which
no,
government in.
There's another suggestion too, right? Now what we have to. This is my thinking. We like Donald Trump was saying, okay, well, we buying a certain amount of goods from you, but you need to buy a certain amount of goods from us. So okay, so we buying a lot of apples, so make sure Americans and Europeans eating more mango and pomsite. So this is what we have to do. We importing, well, we have to push more pomsite and mango and cocoa outside the country, which is we fail to do. So this is how we have to do. We shouldn't I mean, we could kind of coerce the population to eat local, but at the same time I think it's kind of a little too late in the game here. So what we have to do now is to work towards exporting what we have more in a more drastic way overseas. So I mean, while we know our population could get worked back into eating, but listen, we're dealing with a global forum now. People are more internationally minded, and there are much lot more travel. So I would say push for exportation of our goods.
no. Gary, let me just expand on that a bit, right? When you run out of foreign exchange, and the trend is that we are running off. When UNC left the government, we had around 11 billion in foreign reserves, and about 2 billion in foreign debt, right? So we had a net position of 9 billion US dollars. That was 10 years ago, right? 9 billion surplus US dollars. That's the government and not the country, because there are other things that we have to factor in. But by and large, those are the figures we're dealing with. At the moment, that 9 billion surplus has dropped to zero. Zero meaning to say that our foreign reserves, official net foreign reserves, is 5 billion. And when you take off, when you minus the debt, foreign debt of 5 billion, we have zero money, And this gentleman has been making that observation for years. That is Roger Hussein, because he's very good at data collection. But that's not the full picture of government, um, of the country's reserve, because not included in that calculation is what, let's say, Trinidad companies have abroad, including the bank, and it does not include the private sector liabilities. So let's assume that is even. So we are coming back to government position now. So really we have zero reserves at the moment. When you net off the loans, we have zero. So we have to say, okay, if the trend continues as is, within a few years, our debt will go up, foreign debt will go up to about 7 billion, and our reserves will go down to zero. Then what will be our predicament? We have to go back now to the 1990s, where we can only allocate purchase as I forgot the name for it, when central bank were allocating foreign exchange depending on how much comes in. And so we're going to reach that situation. Now, during those times, uh, I don't know if you all were here in Trinidad. I was managing the corporate accounts of Scotiabank in the early 80s to late 80s. And that is when a lot of these companies went bankrupt. That is Trinity Motors, all the car industries, except for Massey, were able to survive. It was very, very brutal. That recession was very brutal. And we are reaching a situation like that now. We are reaching a situation. So we have to be cognizant of these trends and see how do we navigate it to survive, consolidate, and grow. And that is really the challenge. Survive, consolidate, and grow. How can we do it in this environment? Any of you all were in Trinidad in the 80s?
Yeah, I
Uh,
was there.
You
uh,
were?
no,
I
Yeah,
left
I
I
was
in the
there.
mid
Yeah.
80s,
Hmm.
so I know.
I left around mid
Oh
80s.
Lord, let me tell you, it was brutal. It was brutal.
I know when the 86 I was there a little while when Mr. Robinson,
Robinson, yes.
yeah,
Yes,
NAR
yes, yes.
took
Okay,
government. I used to be
okay.
his economist in Tobago, so when he won, I pulled me over here, and
Right,
I
okay.
realized what was going on there. I booted out and went to Washington D.C. to
Yes,
my
yes.
studies and so on because
Okay. Yeah, it was
well,
a brutal time because I was in the middle of it. There were several bankruptcies and so on that we had to work out. Trinity Motors for one. Then we
yeah.
had McInerney Allstons. They went bankrupt, belly up.
Mm.
And the CEO at that time used to come in. I was at Scotiabank at the time. He used to come in early in the morning to meet the manager. The manager used to go and hide. He said, "Wait, you handle it." So it
Yeah,
was brutal. It was
and
brutal.
lot of back pay and so on was paid in bonds and so on. I heard
Yeah. Well, we
public
could
servants, public
we still
servants back pay.
yeah, we still have those instruments we can use to pacify the public sector and so on, but we have to be very careful. What I'm worried about, and I would like to get a meeting with the Prime Minister. What I'm worried about when you're in destitute position, these banks will still come and raid the treasury. Raid the treasury. I've done investigation. Let me tell you, those banks are brutal. They appear to be a friend. Appear to be a friend, and say, "Don't worry, we'll do this, that, and the next." When they were trying to solve the um, when they were trying to solve the CLICO issue, they
Hmm.
wanted a few $1 billion to pay off the depositors and just bring that to an end. And they had investment bank from Miami coming over and said, "We'll do it for you. We'll lend you the 2 billion, but we'll lend you more than that, and we'll put the rest in a sinking fund that will grow in 10 to 15 years to the amount to pay off the principal." So there was a ministerial committee who asked me to look at it and to come into the meeting to see what these investment bankers are doing. And management, the ministers were all gun ho in getting it, in
No.
getting it. So when they presented, I asked them two questions, just two questions. I kept quiet throughout the presentation. I said, "What are you going to invest the sinking fund in?" They say government treasuries. I asked them what rate you expect over the period. They said 9%. Dr. Maraj, you into finance. You tell me. Interest rates were less than probably 2 or 3%. And they're saying we expect to get 9% compounded rate of return. So after the meeting, I told the minister, I said, don't touch it. Vasant was there, Tim was there, a few of them. The point I want to make is that when you're dealing with these banks, you have to be very, very cautious
Yeah.
and never make a decision until you get professional advice. And I'm one of the few in the country who has had that experience over the last 35, 40 years. One of few. I gave a 2-day seminar to Federal Reserve Bank on guess what? On repos, on repos. Federal Reserve Bank didn't fully understand what a repo was. That's New York Federal Reserve Bank. So all I'm saying is very specialized. I hope they don't rush into things. They could get burned. Wasa raised the financing for $1 billion, and the same foolish structure they did. The bank raised $1.3 billion for them, and they said
No,
the
no,
three.
I like to reiterate, Mr. Sriram, is that my objective is to watch the back of the Prime Minister and her
Yes,
government.
we have to.
And I want our team, and I'm going to reiterate as much as possible, our team to focus on guiding her and pointing things out so that she don't fall into any trap that someone may, I mean, she's a very intelligent lady, but at the same time, she have a lot on her plate. So we have to kind of, keep an eye out and don't hesitate to reach out to her when we see something so that she
So
doesn't
by
fall.
next week, I'll reach out to her. By next week, I'll send her a little letter reminding her.
Don't
Well,
be
Because
shy. Don't be shy. I'm
no,
encouraging my
no, we
team.
can't.
Yeah.
Listen, Gary, we can't afford to be shy now. We have
No.
to be bold faced. We have
Yes.
to be bold.
Be
in your
bolder than the
face. Correct.
PNM. Be
Yes,
bolder
sir.
than the PNM.
If
We in
I
charge now. We in charge, and we have to do everything to safeguard our government, safeguard the reputation of our prime minister, make sure that she has the necessary information so she can make the right decision. So I'm
so
encouraging my entire team here: do not hesitate to communicate with her and make a recommendation.
see the most important position in the government apart from the prime minister is the minister of finance. Is the minister of finance. In the last when they were there 2010 to 2015, during that period, they brought in Larry Hawaii as the minister of finance. Larry Hawaii, I was the director at FCB. Larry was the CEO. Hawaii had no experience in investment banking, zero.
I
Citibank,
really don't know who recommend him because I don't know what part of the which rock they pull he out of, to tell you the truth.
well, this is what I'm saying. You need a very experienced person on that. So our present Minister of Finance has to be very cautious. I'm available. I already told him I'm available, right? But what I want to point out to you, Larry Hawaiian Day, the government got scammed by Citibank again. Citibank has been scamming this government for many years.
You had made that statement to us before and brought that information about the interest rate and how what they were doing to us before, and you caught them.
Right.
You would have to reiterate some of that.
But when they did, just imagine, Dr. Maharaj and Mr. Singh, you all will understand. Instead of raising a US dollar bond, because we that's our earnings, right? In US dollars, they raised a yen and they swapped it. Interest rates are very complex. They had to mark the market. They had to mark the market because it was sold on the basis that interest rate is going to climb rapidly. In
Mhm.
1 year, they had to put up margin call of 900 million TT dollars. Another year, 500, 300. Nobody knows about it. They just have to take out that from the budget and put it aside. When there's a margin call, the banks call on you to put that money aside. So it was a very expensive financing. So we have to protect the treasury. I promised by the end of this week I'll do up the letter to the prime minister and ask her to be very careful. And I'm sure among our people away in Dr. Maharaj, etc., whose profession is finance, would actually offer and support. Say a team could be there to advise the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister.
And that's exactly what I was thinking as you were talking, Ved. Um, because the Minister of Finance right now is this boy, the secretary of the party. What is he? The manager of the party. What his name is again?
Tanku,
Kanhai. Kanhai. Is it Kanhai? The
Kanhai,
present,
Peter Kanhai.
right. I don't know how much how versed he is in international financial markets.
Who are you talking about? The finance
The
minister?
the finance minister,
The
yes.
finance
No,
minister
no,
is Dave Tanku.
it's Dave Tanku.
Abraham, okay, right. Well, I don't know how much exposure he had to international finance, but he could get some people like you and a few other people. I mean, I don't live there, but I could be consulted on some from time to time.
No,
But he
well,
need
no,
about because we cannot rely on and you're hitting it right because they cannot go it alone because they don't know it all to start with.
that-
Secondly, a minister's job is not to take all the risk alone by himself, but to have a team of people upon whom he could draw upon so that his advice would be the best available in the country or even in the world for that matter.
right.
And
So,
so he
so
has to he has to pull a team, like how Gary pulling a team. He has to pull a team together so that he will be on the right footing. Do not make the mistake Robinson made. Robinson had all good intentions. It was really a fantastic, but a simple error caused him,
mhm.
the country to turn against him. And you don't want that to happen again. So all
But
these
they,
things, it's all these things to pull you whip. And you and could crack the whip. I can tell you, if they crack the whip, they won't last even 5 years. They have
that
to be careful. They have
That
to
is
be
true.
very, very careful because these people in this country, they are urban based and they're ready to march and they're ready to take up guns and they're ready to do whatever,
Well,
whatever.
well, that is
But to
my.
have them in the grip, hold on to it. And let me just
That,
ask one more question. Let me ask one more
sure,
question before you
sure,
answer again.
sure.
Do you know if the UNC has an internal polling function? That is, they have a body of people who do internal polling, or if they didn't do it, do they have it in the works, or what, or what, or what? I
What
don't
do you
know. I
mean
would like to
after the
find out.
election or before
No,
the election?
no, with you, I have not do the election anymore. Election is gone. I have to
Okay.
manage now, and I have to know what am I managing. What am I managing? Last night I was saying again, from election to election, the role of the people who supporting your party, not the parliamentary arm. They will be in the press all the time, and they'll be looking glasses elsewhere. The hard work will be done on the ground with people like Gary, people like Ved, people like Suman, people like me,
Well,
people on
listen.
the
We
ground
have we
who
have
must
the
who must
the
who must
people
be
like Peter
the
Canhai that
piggyback
you
so
they will
that
have to
so
talk
that they
to.
will win the election the next time around because you have your ear to the ground. And that is why I ask him to have people polling for them. They should be pulling a poll every few months to see where they're going.
Doc, we're
Yeah, I
focusing
must
on
say,
pulling government together right now, right?
they,
And
they,
we are auditing the situation where we are dealing with, which we have seen. I have sent some the newspaper to you where the PNM did a devastation to the treasury, and each every ministry is overspent, and so I mean we cannot force the government or party to focus on that right. Or that has to be party affairs, and so we are focusing on gathering the necessary information on how to govern and going forward. I mean, so there's a lot of things they're
if
working
I
on.
may
So
answer,
party politics, at least for the next 3 months, you can't even ask them to think about that.
Mr. Gary, that's not what I'm saying. I am saying the parliamentary arm have their work cut out for them. We know that. But in the interim, you have to chew gum and walk at the same time. If you cannot do that, you go back to the Robinson way. You have to make it sure
Well,
that
we're
you
chewing more
hold your
than gum
party
right now, to tell
together
you the
in
truth.
order for you to advance your policies, or else they're going to ride you over. You have to
Yeah.
have the workers on the
Um,
ground, the
yeah,
party workers on the ground.
Dr. Maraj, let me suggest a few things. And these are called low hanging fruits. Low
Mhm,
hanging fruits. We
mhm,
have no legislation, no meaningful legislation to protect people against malpractice by the banks. Do you know we
mhm.
do not have a truth in lending legislation in Trinidad? Do
Oh,
you
you
know
don't. Okay.
we don't have an APR lending legislation? How to calculate your all-in costs? We don't have it. Do you
Mhm,
know Courts is charging over 50% on the credit? 50%. All those
mhm,
things should be disclosed. Ghana, they disclose it. We do not have legislation anti-extortionate practice. And if you look at all these laws in America, you cannot send a bailiff 12 o'clock at night to hound you down to collect. You can't do that. There are certain things, protection against it. So
mhm.
all those laws, what I was suggesting is that these are low-hanging fruits. Keep the people occupied where legislation is coming in to serve them better. I think in India, you must have a toilet in the bank. We have all these geriatrics coming to collect their pension, and they have nowhere to go. And it's very difficult. Sorry. And these banks are making billions of dollars these days, and you're not servicing your clientele. So all these small, minute things, and that's why I was also suggesting immediately they could instruct the banks to release the foreign exchange. That will prevent significant relief and goodwill. Because whilst you may not be able to fulfill all your commitments right away, in the meantime, you're releasing a tremendous amount of goodies by way of simple legislation, simple legislation. And this
Uh,
is where strategy has to be drawn up and implemented. And Machiavellian is saying you give out goodies in drips, right? So you have about 10 of those for the next 12 months, and you give
yes.
that out in drips and show the population that you are acting on their behalf. So, I don't know where the strategy is within the UNC at the moment. If a team, I think they should regroup a team of what I would call strategic thinkers within the UNC, whether in government or out of government or wherever, as a direct advisor to the prime minister. I am tired of going through gatekeepers. I don't want to go through gatekeepers. If you all buy into that idea, and I'll be delighted to be part of that team, but are direct advisors to the prime minister.
Mr.
But
Siram, you're talking to the team. You're within the team.
That's what
we,
I'm.
I, I, I am saying this publicly. I'm not going through no gatekeepers. I have an understanding with the Prime Minister, and I intend to keep that understanding where I go directly to her. My team, before the election,
Yes,
was designated to work directly for her and to advise her directly. I am
fantastic.
not going through
I
any gatekeepers this time around. I am communicating. If I have something to say, I send it to her directly.
Well, if you let us agree on this, I will send her the letter. So at least let her pause in terms of all the financing. I'll be
Okay,
willing to.
so
But
send your recommendation. CC me on the email,
yes, let it
and
flow
that is what
through
I
one
instructed
channel.
I
Suman.
will speak to you. Fantastic.
Let it
Because
flow through one channel. Wait, so it will be like all of us discussing.
Gary,
Okay, we
Suman,
agree. Good.
let me tell you, I feel so relieved for help
No, you
because
know this.
I've been carrying this burden throughout the Caribbean and Trinidad for over 25 years.
I
I
mean,
alone.
the
Gentlemen,
same that same thing.
my last name is Mahavir, and I think you guys know the meaning of that, right?
Well,
So,
I'm
Okay.
serious thing, so you know the meaning of
do we
serious
have
thing.
any good?
No, we don't know. Tell us.
All right. Do we have any good securities lawyer within the group?
Security lawyer.
Yeah. Can you all find one or two?
You're
I will have
talking
to think
about
about.
securities lawyer or security lawyer? What
Secure
Find us a
securities
securities
security
law?
meaning
lawyer. Can you find
banking
us?
lawyer.
Securities.
Banking.
Okay, that would
I am
be
not
a
aware of. We had Mr. Arjun here with us, who was from the central bank. So I would have to consult with him on that.
Arjun, you could consult with him, but to see whether these are very technical issues, eh?
yes.
And bond financing, bond structuring, how the banks ripped off the government for billions of
Yeah,
dollars.
we'd have to have a conversation privately off the air, and then we'll take it from there.
Let's do that.
Yeah, but
Let's do that.
I am just setting the record straight publicly here. I am not going through any gatekeepers. If I have something to say to the prime minister, I say it to her directly. And depends. I am limiting my time since she have taken office for what I'm saying, because I'm giving her the air to breathe and to handle her
Yes,
business. You know, she has a lot on her plate. But something like what you have to say is highly critical. So I am saying it here now. We needs to get that information to her and let her direct whichever minister it goes to. I'm not going through any minister.
right. So let me do up this letter. Today is what? I'm losing track of time. Monday.
Today is Monday
By
the 12th.
Right. So give me up till this weekend. I'll do up a very simple and short letter. I'm copying it to you, Gary. You'll have to just confirm the title so that that's
Yeah.
it. And let's take it from there because I've been acting alone, and quite frankly, it has
Well,
been a very
you're no longer alone. We have
You
a
know,
channel,
yeah.
and we have direct access. And like I said, I'm making it clear that I'm not going through any gatekeepers.
Any gatekeepers.
I
Fantastic.
am the type of guy that knocks down gates.
and
So
Fantastic. Yeah,
really
I'm
it's interesting you brought up that topic today because Gary and I was talking about the same thing earlier this morning.
oh gosh, we'll be thinking
Everything
alike.
must flow.
time
I
time
thought
is too short. Time is too short.
Yes,
The situation is highly critical, and when something becomes critical, we need to get it.
to get it right.
yes.
Okay.
We need fire to the heels, and that's the kind of guy you're dealing with here.
Direct to the source and direct to where it has to go to.
Yeah,
Suman,
and like I said, I promise her to watch her back, and that is what I'm doing.
fantastic. Suman, you remind me of a joke Mr. Pandey gave me, We were talking and he said the same thing, he was thinking the same thing. And then he quipped, he said, great men think alike, great
Uh,
minds think alike, and fools seldom differ. before. So
They
I don't
qualify
know what
both sides.
category.
I have to give Almighty God credit for bringing us together, because the Lord know I was in the wilderness here struggling
Oh my,
to make
no,
things
no.
happen. So that I want to give credit to our Almighty God, and for um, helping to really to deliver our people from the evil that was oppressing them in the country. We've seen another victory today with the Commissioner of Police,
Yes, yes, yes.
where they tried to victimize her, and that's another miracle there. And I mean, I thank God for that we're seeing. The DPP dropped his case, because
Mhm.
let me tell you something. I am telling you, if the PNM had won this election, he wasn't dropping the case.
No,
That's
no,
very
no.
easily. So we have to deal, beside the economics. We have some serious dealing with the justice system, the police force, the military,
Mhm,
our intelligence. You see, they relieve the head of the SSA. I must congratulate them on that.
mhm.
And we have more to go.
But
And I know, and I'm saying no
you
more
know,
nice anti-Kamala, and then they come back and pull the carpet out on your feet and capsize you. We can't. This is war. Okay,
It is
this
war.
is war, and you can't leave no enemy to come back at you. So we
No.
know what they've been doing. We know they've been spying on her. We know the wickedness they've been doing. We know they've been suppressing our people, and we have to deal with them straight up.
Well, I think I would call it a cocktail of very good ideas. And the question is implementation. I've been working on this intellectually for years, and in terms of practice, my strength is implementation. Just get
Right.
it done, even if it's on a small scale. Just get it done, and then you roll out. That is why I was very successful in terms of product development. I developed at the bank. They put me in charge of product development, and that's because I did over 18 new financial products. In terms of bond financing, bond structuring. I need to spend time and complete my book. But this is something that the Caribbeans don't know. These multinational banks and local banks quick to pick up on it, all the bad habits, and they have been cheating governments and corporate and customers for years without doing without a blink, doing it with the great confidence that nobody would ever catch them. And
Because
I think.
there's no force. I mean, look at the justice system we have here. They're part of the problem and part of the solution. So if you have
Mhm,
I mean, I would say create your SOP, right? In
mhm.
your recommendation, you're very well experienced. Suman is very well experienced. Dr. Maharaj is very well experienced here. So, I mean, I think we have a good team to analyze the situation and make the recommendation.
That's correct. And one of the major things that they have to do, once she accepts now that this advisory team to her with regards to all financial matters in terms of bond financing and so on, right? Um, she has to make that team responsible. No, what you call government agencies or government subsidiaries like Petrotrin and so on to raise any financing without the blessings of herself and the Minister of Finance and that team.
you see, this is the same thing, Gary. You see, that's why I say we need this interministerial team where we be developing a cadre of implementers that
Mhm.
all projects in these 13 growth poles, they must go through and get the blessing of that implementation team first before you implement or start your project. Why? Why is that important? As in
Well, I'm
developing,
calling on my technocrats here to put it together, and let's deliver it.
Mhm.
as you let's say you do one project, you have Ministry of Public Administration has to be involved in everything. Ministry of Planning has to be involved in anything. When I say involved, not in minister, but a core technocrat or technical person.
What I asked you, I don't know if you remember, I asked you to create, how to say, a technological module. In the sense that you create that foundation where we build on, and then you spread it further to various ministries, with using AI technology and whatever you have to implement. But we have to make sure we
That
have
will come
also.
in time, Gary, but nobody knows much about AI right now.
No,
It
no,
is
no, no.
still
But I say,
growing.
but that's what I'm saying. For you,
Eventually,
you are creating this thing in your spare time. You're building it as the time goes for. You're adding information on it as time goes by, and then you make the recommendation. And then we would look at what kind of technology, how to say, infrastructure is in place to support what you're saying there. We don't know what was looted, what's in place, as I mean, especially with the medical technology, with the information being updated for the doctors and the consultation and all these things has to be, relayed, and it must be accessible with the touch of a finger, like how we have it here.
yeah.
So
But
you would have to recruit your team from here to kind of boost that, and then that. But I want to create that kind of foundation. So I mean, whether it's the Ministry of National Security, they get their part of it, and it has to be customized for each ministry. The customization will take place, but you create that basic
yeah,
structure.
I wouldn't. That's a good idea, and I think that will happen over time. But for now, we need to have a core of skilled persons who have expertise in their field to be part of a team. Call it an
But it
implementation
might
team.
have some expert who they know and won't take advice.
Well, that's why you're not getting the ministers involved because they have their preconceived notion of what they should be doing, and that's limited only to themselves, nobody else.
And our objective here is to make sure our prime minister is not blindsided, right?
Right? And for the betterment of the country, not the individual. The country must be the beneficiary of this, no one person. So let me give an easy example. Let's say you want to develop, she wants to make the East West Corridor a biotechnology center. That is just talk, right? How can we have an
Well, I think that should be between not only in the East West corridor, that should be the South too,
correct? But that is
right?
one.
Because
That
number
is
one,
one.
you're creating an unnecessary traffic for people to travel
But
back to the north.
I think the emphasis was that we use the campus, the St. Augustine campus, all
Well,
in
we have a
what
campus
needs.
in Debe,
Correct.
which is not being used. So the Debe campus will be the perfect ground foundation there to build because it's not usable, no usage right now.
And I proposed to them that we make Debe a smart city. Debe as well as San Fernando West as well as St. Augustine. You
So we
see,
have to decentralize things. So I mean, this
no,
technology can't be in one area.
one area. That's right. So it's spread it around. Debe is a new campus. There are 3 schools, huge schools, the Shiva Boys and Parvati Girls High School, which they stopped. Those 2 mega projects that the intake of those schools will be over 1,000 students each. Right? Then you have, I don't know if you know that area, there is a convent school, so a high school. There's another second. Within half of a mile, there will be 4 massive schools, right? And then now with the Debe campus, alongside that, you make it like into a like a student city, with at the end more educated people coming out of high school will be going into the university as well. Let them may have the access to what's best can be delivered to the citizen. The best Wi-Fi, the best technology training, the small AI apps and so on. Get them into it. So you could do it as a model. And if that model works out good, is to do the same thing in San Fernando, in 3rd Street here, where they but they want to build, PNM wants to build housing in the middle of three big schools there. So it's the same concept. Make it into smart cities, start them as little models and grow it outwards, as the case may be. And this is the ideal time to do it because you're now setting up things. So
I'm hoping that they, I know I am not trying to ambush them at the same time, give them a chance to organize this thing, but
yeah,
I am saying while they are doing that to move forward with prepping the information we discuss and submit it, and you can add to it, you
we
know.
will we will make recommendations from our end
Yeah.
to what we
So
see fit
make the
and
recommendation, wait, send the thing, make sure you CC me on it,
Yeah, I
and
will. I will.
then we build the conversation.
yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I will send you some of the information, articles, and so on I've written over the years. See if it makes sense. I think it does. But you're free to critique it and add to it or modify or
Well,
whatever.
we could even do a listen to me. We can do a series on it. Like I said, this channel is available. We can rehash these things.
Yeah.
What you did over the years. I'm still waiting on. Let me know a time. Where I can cover you on the farm. If somebody holds the phone and you can give a narrative, a little documentary
Hmm.
on the farm and what you're doing out there, and a narrative. Somebody can help you with holding the phone while you speak. If they have a
Yeah.
selfie something. Yeah, we want to do that too. The channel is here, gentlemen. Use it to our advantage. The PNM media in Trinidad is not going to be at our advantage, so let's broadcast as much as we can here. It's available. Let's beat the iron, like they say, while it's hot. And and I have a militant way of rapid fire, full throttle ahead. I don't stop for nothing. I mean, when I start shooting it, it's ongoing.
Ved, I have a question for you. Maybe
So,
perhaps a question and a comment. You've been talking about the banks sitting on excess for an exchange that should be working and is not working. A decision to not to invest is also an investment decision because if you're going to risk your capital and you would have a zero return or negative return, then why do you want to hoard it? But that is a different question to the one I'm going to ask you. My question is, do they ever use moral suasion to the best of your knowledge and it worked or it doesn't work? And if it does work, instead of I'll notice you at one point you said about introducing a law to get the banks to pull the money out rather than sitting or, as you said, hoarding it. Right? And I would say that is not to invest, is that is an investment decision as well, because you have to protect your capital. But so does moral suasion ever work? Did they ever tried it? And if so, why not? Could this government not try the moral suasion um, about those banks, those
oh yeah,
foreign exchange that are idle, that are
yeah,
held in idle balances?
yeah. Dr. Maharaj, they could easily tell the banks, look, without without passing any legislation and so on, as they have done
Mhm.
with the insurance companies, they could just tell the banks, guys, just hold a 5% surplus over your US dollar liabilities and sell out the rest in the market. But I made a strong argument that they were given a trading license. Trading license is to buy and sell, not to hoard. So
Mhm.
we have to look at what are the other banks doing. Scotiabank has zero surplus. In fact, they are negative, and
Mhm.
they are able to service all their customers with regards to importation and service and what you call guarantees and so on for right letters of credit and so on. So why is our national bank building up their stock of foreign exchange? And that's for two reasons. They'll invest it in a U.S. Treasury short term. They're borrowing the TT dollars. They're borrowing the TT dollars at less than 1%. They're investing at 4%. That is zero capital once it's a government risk. And so they're just sitting on and making money without doing their work. They're supposed to trade that currency, but they are hoarding it. So they're hoarding it. And the second reason why they're hoarding it If it exchange rate goes to 10 to 1, they record a 300 and some $1 million immediately on, and the government, the management and directors get probably huge bonuses
Mhm.
at a time where it is scarce.
That is also a decision, an investment decision not to hold it, but to wait for the opportune time, which is what I was referring to just now in that regard. Yeah, but I don't like the thing about too many laws, law for everything. Like if you could get, and that's why I asked you the question on moral suasion. If it works, why
No
not try
more
it
moral
instead?
suasion will work very quickly if you get word from the Minister of Finance and the central bank governor. The
Yeah.
Yeah.
central bank governor, some years ago, in fact, when UNC was in power, they had
Mm,
a committee looking at into banking fees and so on. And they
Hmm.
asked the
mm,
central bank governor, he said, "What can you do about it?" He actually physically put his hand up in the air and he can't do anything. So what are you a regulator for?
yeah.
What are
Yeah.
you a regulator for? And do you know
Mhm.
if you have money and you put it in a savings account and hoping in a rainy day, maybe 5 years from now, 5 years afterwards, when you go on to take out your savings, you have nothing, because they line up
FDIC
those
flood.
accounts, they line up those savings account every month and milk it. They milk it. I call them milk accounts.
Mhm.
So why?
Mhm.
Simple. Do not touch anybody's savings account with their approval. So those are simple laws. That moral suasion, yes, you tell them now and they'll forget it in 6 months. But put it into law where you have delinquent banks, you put it into law to make it very, very clear.
Yeah.
Very clear. So, and they're simple laws. They're simple laws.
Yeah. But you should do that
Nothing.
only when the moral side doesn't work. So then you really go, hey, crack the whip, so to speak. Yeah.
Dr. Maharaj, I've been long in the business. There's nothing morality about money. Nothing. There's no
Yeah.
morality about money. So
Just
Yeah. Yeah.
let's
it's
work
all
with that
greed.
assumption. Let's
It's
work
all
with that
greed.
assumption.
All greed. All greed. Nothing else but greed.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I will share with you the work I've done over the years slowly, and
Okay.
let me tell you, it's bad. It's bad. It's
Yeah.
bad.
Okay.
I don't know if you read the book Liar's Poker.
Liars who?
Liar's Poker.
Yeah, I don't think, but I heard about it. I never
Yeah,
read it. I heard.
it's a good book.
I'll put,
It's
I'll put my
it's a
hand on
good
it.
book. A
Okay.
good book because
Yeah.
it gives you insight in how investment bankers work.
Okay.
They'll come and review you, test
I came
you.
out of banking though. I was in JP Morgan Chase, so I know.
Well, then you will know. Oh Lord. Anyway, that's a life of its own.
Mhm.
When they when they try to con one of the investment bankers try to con France. So
Mhm.
France Minister of Finance picked up on it. So the two officers were deciding they're going to the meeting with the Minister of France, Minister of Finance of France, and they're deciding what is it they should do. What is it? The senior said, "Don't worry, I'll scare the hell out of him." So they went into that meeting and telling the Minister of Finance of France, if you renege on this contract, you're going to be taken off the capital markets in the world. And that was the strategy they used. So the ministers of finance around the world, many of them they never walked the street then. They've never walked the street. They don't know all the tricks. And I think this is where they need protection. Let me do up the letter. I am so relieved that I'm part of a team because I've been working alone all these years on these matters.
Mhm.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Okay.
Welcome. That's very
Thank
welcome.
you, Mr.
Okay,
Siram. I
guys.
really appreciate being connected with you
Yes,
and
yes,
Mr.
yes,
Sumant, and well, I always have Dr. Maraj in my corner.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So we have
Okay,
a
well,
financial team here, and we also have a medical team with Dr.
Yeah.
Stephen Ramroop and Dr.
Mhm.
Parum, who
Oh,
might be doing
Maharaj.
some surgery right now. He might be doing a couple shifts right now on duty. And like I said, I'm focused on building this team. By the time the next election come, this team must be in full swing with with a larger assets
Mhm, mhm,
under our wing here.
mhm.
I think we make it a good start. We have this platform, and I mean, we could do a couple of Zoom discussions if you guys, off air. We could do a couple of Zoom discussions if you want,
Mhm.
or we could also do how to say a conference call on WhatsApp.
Yes, yes, yes,
And
yes.
I mean, Google has its thing also, but we could do a few things. So just let me know uh, when you're ready.
Yeah, and if you can locate a good securities finance lawyer, I think that they can look at the transactions I had investigated. I have all the documents. Some of them are very aged, but in Trinidad, fraud has no statute bar. I think,
Maybe a foreign person could be Dr. Marj Sumant. We could look into that from over here.
yeah, yeah.
I'm also
Somebody who's
connected.
willing to donate their time and experience, without
Yeah.
incurring any cost and so on. So, and see, just to see whether the case has merit. That's the first thing, and then to see whether it's statute bar and whether we could, recover significant amount of money for the government.
Yeah, I will talk to you off the air some things.
Off there.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
yeah. So I think
All
we
right.
basically covered the grounds that we wanted to tonight.
Yeah,
Anything else, gentlemen? Dr. Maraj,
We
Suman?
The lawyer, the security specialist you're looking for is international or domestic, or both.
well, somebody. These are um, who understand the details of transactions, and then they can articulate whether there are any breaches. So an international lawyer, there are books on securities law that give you guidance for each country, that applies to each country. And we are under the British system. So if somebody has the from the Commonwealth also might do very well.
Yeah, but we do a lot of US based business, so a lot of the transactions are US based. So maybe somebody from the US could be beneficial too.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, most of the financing, whatever we raise here in terms of US dollars, it passes through investment banks in New York.
Right. So I'm saying somebody from
Yeah,
New York would be
and
good,
they
and
had
Dr.
the
Maraj, you could
services.
look into that.
No,
Yes,
just one parting thing I want to say, and probably we could talk about it next time around. The PNM government has been hiring lobbyists here in K Street in Washington,
yes.
um, but they never hired a Republican. They only hired Democrats. So they have problem now with Trump.
Well,
I don't know what the hell they.
Well, it has to do, you know, it's a lot of things that we'll talk about that off the air.
okay,
All
okay,
right. Okay. Good
okay.
night. Okay.
But
yeah,
I,
I'm going to be the first to leave. Last and first out. Good night.
good night. Good night,
Okay, everybody,
everyone.
thank you for joining.
Yeah, thanks.
Gentlemen, we'll catch up tomorrow night.
right. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Have a good
All
Okay,
night.
right.
bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Good night.
Okay, everyone. Good night. So this event is being held on May 17th, starting at 8:30 a.m. And you can contact Miss Shady Weeks, 868-372-3635. She's looking for donations and volunteers to assist with this program. So with that, I will say good night. The flyer is loaded, and you can get that information there also. Thank you. Good night.